Thursday, July 9th, 2026, and we left off on Hebrews 12. So we pick it up right there. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, wait a minute. Why does this sound so familiar? I think we read this already. About Esau, for you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire. Oh, no, wait. I think it's just similar to. We'll just read it again just in case. It sounds familiar, but maybe. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Verse 3. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. We did read this, but that's okay. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Hold on, what does that mean? Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Sounds intriguing. Let's do a breakdown there. Let's see. Explain this in a paragraph and don't use tables. There's a running disdain for tables on this stream. Okay, let's see. This passage serves as a compassionate but firm rallying cry for believers who are experiencing spiritual exhaustion, discouragement, or persecution. Drawing on athletic imagery of a runner who is completely spent, the author urges the community to actively shake off their weariness, symbolized by drooping hands and weak knees, and to intentionally choose a clear, righteous direction in life. By creating straight paths, they aren't just helping themselves, they are ensuring that the more vulnerable or spiritually fragile members among them, the lame, won't stumble and fall completely away from the faith. Instead of allowing hardship to permanently break their spirit, this collective effort allows the community to find healing, mutual support, and the renewed strength needed to finish their spiritual journey together. Okay, makes sense. Verse 14, strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled, that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears. So we have not read, I assume Esau is from the Old Testament. So let's read, let's get a summary on that story. Give a summary of the story of Esau. The passage you shared from Hebrews highlights the most infamous moment in Esau's life, but his full story, found in the book of Genesis, is a complex tale of sibling rivalry, short-sighted decisions, and ultimate family drama. Here's a breakdown of how Esau's story unfolds and why the New Testament views him as a cautionary tale. The twin brothers and the prophecy. Esau was the firstborn twin son of Isaac and Rebekah, making him Abraham's grandson. His twin brother was Jacob. Even before they were born, the Bible notes they wrestled inside their mother's womb. God gave Rebekah a prophecy about them. The older shall serve the younger. As they grew, the brothers couldn't have been more different. Esau was a rugged, hairy outdoorsman and a skilled hunter. It's funny they point out he's hairy. He was his father Isaac's favorite. Jacob was a quiet man who preferred staying close to home, and he was his mother Rebekah's favorite. Trading the birthright for stew. In ancient times, the birthright was a massive deal. As the firstborn, Esau, so Esau was the older one, Esau was entitled to a double portion of his father's inheritance and, crucially in this family, the spiritual leadership of God's covenant promise to Abraham. One day, Esau returned from the fields completely exhausted and famished. Jacob was cooking a red lentil stew. When Esau demanded some, Jacob seized the moment and offered a trade, the stew for Esau's birthright. What? Stew for your birthright. Thinking only of his immediate physical hunger, Esau reasoned, "Look, I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" He swore an oath and traded his sacred inheritance for a single meal. Okay. Genesis 25:34 concludes this moment bluntly. Thus Esau despised his birthright. The stolen blessing. Years later, when their father Isaac was old and blind, he prepared to give Esau his formal patriarchal blessing before dying. Rebekah overheard this and hatched a plan with Jacob. While Esau was out hunting wild game for his father, Jacob disguised himself in Esau's clothes and covered his hands in goat skins to mimic his brother's hairy arms. The trick worked. Isaac unknowingly gave Jacob the primary blessing, declaring him lord over his brothers. Yeah, I'm a little confused. I thought he won it in a trade already. When Esau returned and realized what happened, he was devastated. He wept bitterly, the tears mentioned in your Hebrews passage, and begging his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also." But the prophetic blessing had already been spoken and could not be undone. Isaac could only give Esau a secondary blessing, which foretold that he would live away from the richness of the earth and serve his brother, though he would eventually break free. Anger and later reconciliation. Furious and grieving, Esau vowed to murder Jacob as soon as Isaac died. To save Jacob's life, hold on. Now I'm confused. Why did Jacob have to resort to trickery if he had already traded the birthright with Esau directly? That is one of the most common and logical questions people ask about this story. If Jacob already owned the birthright by a legal sworn oath, why did he and his mother feel the need to resort to costumes and lies? Yeah, and why was Esau acting like he was surprised? It comes down to a mix of ancient legal traditions, family favoritism, and a lack of faith. The birthright and the blessing were separate things. Okay. Well, whatever. All right, that's pretty confusing. We're going to read Genesis anyway, so it'll probably make more sense once we read it directly. Where was I? Verse 18. For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further messages be spoken to them. Okay. Again, I'm confused. So let's do what's going on here? Explain this in a paragraph. This passage from the book of Hebrews describes the terrifying physical experience the Israelites had at Mount Sinai when God gave them the 10 Commandments. Oh, okay. The writer uses intense sensory imagery like a blazing fire, thick darkness, a raging storm, and a deafening trumpet blast to emphasize that the Old Covenant, which was the law given through Moses, was grounded in an earthly, terrifying reality that put a fearful distance between a holy God and flawed humans. It was so overwhelming and intimidating that the people literally begged for the voice to stop speaking, paralyzed by the fear of divine judgment. Ultimately, the writer highlights this frightening scene to contrast it with the new covenant brought by Jesus, which offers believers a peaceful, welcoming, and intimate relationship with God, rather than one driven by absolute terror. Yeah. We certainly take that for granted, don't we? At least I do. Let's see. Verse 20. For they could not endure the order that was given. If even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse him who is speaking, for if they did not escape when they refused him, for if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns from heaven. What? See that you do not refuse him who is speaking, for if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns from heaven. Oh, okay. Still referring to the Israelites in the desert with Moses, and they rejected him, which he warned them of, and then they wandered for 40 years or however long it was in the wilderness and never made it to the promised land. Okay. Verse 26, at that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken, that is, things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. For our God is a consuming fire. And so this sounds like yet once more. Once more, one more time. Is this saying that all of creation, earth and space, and whatever else we are unaware of, is going to be destroyed and remade? You are reading that exactly right. Exactly right. In the context of Christian theology and the language used here, this passage is talking about a massive cosmic overhaul. The author of Hebrews is drawing a contrast between the temporary physical universe we can see and touch and the eternal, unchangeable reality of God's kingdom. Here's a breakdown of what that shaking means based on the text. So the scope is absolute, earth and heavens. When the passage says it will shake not only the earth but also the heavens, it uses ancient cosmic language to mean everything that exists in the physical creation. In modern terms, that includes the earth, our atmosphere, outer space, distant galaxies, and any parts of the universe we haven't even discovered yet. Nothing physical is exempt. The purpose is removal. The text explicitly states that this shaking indicates the removal of things that are shaken, that is, things that have been made. Things that have been made refers to the created order, the material universe, because it is part of the old, corrupted, or temporary order of things. It is described as unstable or shakeable. The goal isn't just destruction for destruction's sake. It is a filtering process. God shakes the universe to sift out the temporary so that only what is eternal, perfect, and indestructible, i.e. the things that cannot be shaken, remains. So destroyed or remade. Theology splits slightly on the exact mechanics, but both views land in a similar place. The total destruction view, some interpret removal literally as the complete annihilation of the physical universe, followed by God creating a completely brand new heaven and earth out of nothing, similar to language in 2 Peter 3:10, which mentions the elements dissolving with twisting heat. Dang. The radical renewal view. Others see it more like a refining fire, matching the verse's conclusion, our God is a consuming fire. In this view, the universe isn't deleted into nothingness. Rather, its old, broken, and sinful form is entirely burned away and dismantled so it can be completely reborn, purified, and remade into a permanent home where God dwells with humanity, matching Revelation 21's new heaven and new earth. Yeah, I mean, really, what does it matter? Whether, from our perspective as human beings, it's all going to be blown away anyway, in a good way. The big picture, whichever view a theologian holds, the takeaway of the passage is the same. The entire physical cosmos as we currently experience it has an expiration date. It will be radically dismantled or changed. The author's ultimate point is a reassuring one for believers. While the entire universe is unstable and destined to pass away, the kingdom you belong to is completely safe, unshakable, and eternal. All right, Hebrews 13. How many books of Hebrews is there? Oh, this is the last book of Hebrews. Okay, or last chapter. Hebrews 13, verse 1. Let brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. So this is interesting because this is basically saying that angels are among us, and sometimes we're interacting with angels. But what's interesting about this to me is that I asked a question before about whether or not there might be some people on Earth, at least people from our perspective, that are more or less, I don't know if you guys have ever played video games, but NPCs, non-player controlled characters. They're just controlled by the computer. But, they're there to move the story along. They're there to carry out certain events. Without them, the world would seem empty, blah, blah, blah. But I wonder, in the case of real life, like what would be the purpose of God, who can see everything? He's omnipresent, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient. So what would be the purpose of sending an angel to feign humanity and interact with humans if the purpose isn't for like reporting or spying? Meaning like it can't be because God wants to know like how we would act in certain situations. He can already know this. And so what's the point then? You know what I mean? So let's ask about that. That's my question. What is the purpose of angels interacting with humans and appearing as humans if God can already know our hearts and knows what we are going to do? What is the purpose? And so I guess my best guess would be for very specific tests. And since humans have free will, if God wanted to test this in a very specific way, he might send an angel to do very specific things, since he's not going to force the human being to do those things. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, this is a profound question that gets to the heart of Christian theology, relational faith, and ethics. If God is omniscient, all-knowing, and already searches our hearts, why employ physical, human-disguised messengers? In biblical theology, the purpose of angels appearing as strangers isn't for God's benefit or information gathering. It is entirely for our transformation, testing, and encouragement. Here is a breakdown of why these interactions happen, rooted in the very verse you quoted. So first, the transformation of our hearts, the hospitality test. While God already knows your heart, you do not always know your own heart until it is tested in the real world. When an angel appears as a vulnerable stranger, a poor traveler, or someone in need, it serves as a spiritual mirror. If an angel showed up in blinding celestial glory, everyone would instantly bow down and offer their best. But when they appear as an ordinary stranger, our true, unfiltered nature is revealed. It moves faith out of the abstract and into the concrete. The interaction allows us to actively practice love, transforming our inner character into physical action. A concrete display of God's care. Humans are physical creatures who experience reality through our senses. While God can comfort us purely spiritually, he frequently chooses to use physical means to remind us that he sees us in our physical reality. In the Old Testament, angels in human form ate with Abraham and physically pulled Lot out of danger. The physical appearance of an angel acting as a human provides tangible historical anchors of grace. It reminds us that spiritual warfare and divine care are intimately woven into our everyday physical lives. That's a good point too. Elevating the sacredness of every human being. The verse he quoted from Hebrews 13:2 acts as a powerful ethical warning. Treat every stranger as if they could be a messenger from God. By withholding their identity unawares, angels elevate the baseline of how we are supposed to treat all human beings. If any stranger on the street could be an angel sent by God, then every single human being we encounter demands our dignity, respect, and hospitality. It prevents us from calculating our kindness based on a person's status or what they can do for us. Directing glory back to God. Angels are entirely egoless messengers. Their name in both Hebrew, malach, and Greek, angelos, literally means messenger. When they appear disguised as ordinary humans, they deliver a message, offer protection, or test a heart without drawing attention to themselves. Once their mission is done, they fade away, leaving the human participant focused not on a spectacular creature, but on the providence and mystery of God. Ultimately, God doesn't send angels to find out what we will do. He sends them to invite us into doing what is right, proving the reality of our faith through everyday kindness. Okay, verse 3. Remember those who are in prison, as though in prison with them, and those who are mistreated, since you also are in the body. Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. So this is interesting to me. Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. What is my question here? Why is adultery called out here specifically? Is there a greater punishment for adulterers versus fornicators who are not married, or for those that would ruin marriages? In Hebrews 13:4, the author highlights both groups to show that no one gets a pass on sexual purity, regardless of their relationship status. To answer your question directly, no, the text does not state or imply a greater eternal punishment for one over the other. Instead, the author couples them together to make a comprehensive point. The two distinct words used in the original Greek text explain why both are called out. The sexually immoral, pornos, Greek pornos, where we get the word pornography. In this context, it historically refers to the unmarried engaging in sexual relations, often translated as fornicators. Oh, okay, so it is calling out both. I thought it was grouping them as, okay. But let's finish this. So the sexually immoral pornos, in context, it historically refers to the unmarried engaging in sexual relations, often translated as fornicators, or those engaging in casual, commercial, or promiscuous sex. The adulteress, this specifically refers to married individuals who violate their marriage covenant by sleeping with somebody else. Okay, why are they both called out? In the ancient Greco-Roman world where this letter was written, culture had a double standard. Society was highly permissive of sexual freedom for unmarried people, and even for married men, as long as it didn't cross certain legal lines. By listing both groups, the author of Hebrews is shutting down any loopholes. The unmarried cannot say, well, I haven't made any vows, so I'm not breaking a covenant. The married cannot say, my private life is my business. It doesn't affect my standing before God. Indeed. Is one sin greater than the other? From a legal or relational standpoint in human terms, ruining a marriage causes distinct, devastating collateral damage, destroying families, breaking legal covenants, and shattering trust. However, from the standpoint of divine judgment in this verse, they are treated with equal gravity. Yeah, and that tracks. Okay, so I just misread it, or I misunderstood. Okay, so we just hit our mark for the evening, so we will wrap it up there. We'll pick it back up tomorrow night on Hebrews 13, verse 5. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to drop a sub, share with a friend,